I was in the kitchen, my apron covered in cooking mess. The smell of grilled food and burnt bread stuck to me like a second skin. Outside, loud music played from a speaker, mixed with the happy sounds of my parents and about 30 people celebrating their 35th year of marriage. It was a big party with string lights and fresh flowers in the yard of our wooden house in a quiet area of Tennessee. I, Emily, 33, am the oldest child. I was also the one who set up the party tent early, moved all the tables and chairs, put up the lights, and cooked tons of burgers. My younger sister, Beth, was relaxing by the pool. Our youngest brother, Sam, was having fun with the kids. No one seemed to notice I was still working by the grill, my shirt soaked with sweat. When the sun started to go down, my dad, Thomas, stood up and tapped a spoon on a glass. Everyone stopped talking and looked at him. My mom, Carol, stood next to him, smiling. "We have some exciting news," my dad said proudly. "Next week, the whole family is going on a trip to the Florida coast. 7 days, all planned. Blue water, soft sand, and a party on a large boat." People cheered loudly. Beth hugged her husband and jumped up and down. Sam yelled, "Yes." I knew there'd be a surprise. My mom kept nodding, her face shining. For a moment, I felt hope. A vacation. Maybe finally a chance to rest. I washed my hands, walked over, and managed a polite smile. "When are we leaving? I'll need to arrange my work schedule." Suddenly, it felt strangely quiet. Eyes looked at me, then quickly looked away. My dad looked annoyed, his eyes cold. "You don't need to know," he said slowly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You aren't included." I thought I heard him wrong. My eyes got wide, and I froze. My mom made a sound like she didn't care and shrugged. She turned back to talk to a relative, leaving me standing alone. The quiet only lasted a few seconds, but it felt like it blocked out all other sounds. Then the talking started up again, washing over me like they didn't even notice I was there. I had cleaned the house, made the list, cooked, and run around to make sure the party was perfect. And yet, the daughter who gave up studying overseas to stay home and help the family when Dad had a health issue, was being treated like an outsider. I don't know how I got away. I only realized I was on the front porch when I felt my hand squeezing my purse tightly. The heavy summer air wasn't as bad as the weight in my chest. It felt like a door I'd been holding open for decades had just been slammed shut. "Emily, are you okay?" Beth's voice came from behind me, sounding unsure. I didn't turn around. I opened the small wooden gate and walked out, leaving the party lights behind. Each step down the gravel path towards the garage felt like it was breaking off the last piece of me that still held onto their kindness. I got into my car, closed the door, and turned the air conditioning up high, trying to push away everything that had just happened. I didn't cry. I just felt empty, like everything inside me was gone. I turned on the radio. An old sad song about leaving a place you called home came on. I nodded quietly. Maybe it was time for me to leave too. Not running away, but actually starting to live my own life. I went back to my small apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building in a town in North Carolina. The place was small, only about 400 square feet, but I kept it spotless, my own little corner of the world no one else touched. I took off my shoes, sank into the armchair by the window, and looked out at the dark sky. The party was over. My dad's words were still stuck in my head. "You aren't included." I had given up my younger years to help them. At 19, I said no to a full scholarship to stay home and care for Mom after she had a minor stroke. At 24, I took out a loan to buy Dad a new work truck when his business failed. At 30, I planned Beth's entire wedding. I was like their shadow, quiet, unseen, and no one ever thought to say thank you. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the living room floor, pulling out boxes from under the bed. Old memories. Family pictures. A birthday card I made that no one ever said thank you for. I had kept everything like proof I was real. But now it all felt pointless. At 3 a.m., I got up and pulled an old suitcase from the top of the closet. I didn't need much, a few clothes, my old camera, a notebook, and some basic things. I took out the envelope with the money I had saved little by little. About $1,200. Not enough for a fancy new life, but enough to leave and breathe on my own terms. I opened a map on my phone, looking at the different cities lit up. I wanted the ocean. I needed to feel free, in wide open spaces where no one told me what to do or expected me to be someone I wasn't. I remembered a beach town on the west side of Florida, Sunshine City. I'd seen the name in a travel article. A place with soft white sand and palm trees. I had never been there, which made it even more appealing. I booked the first bus leaving at 6 a.m. from the station in my town, one way. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and put my backpack on as the sky was still covered in a light fog. The bus station was quiet. I bought a plain cup of coffee and sat down to wait. The bus arrived, the doors opened, and the driver gave me a sleepy but kind hello. I got on, gave him my ticket, and chose a window seat. As the bus started moving, I looked through the glass and saw my reflection. My old town faded away, taking with it the years I had called it home. I didn't know what was waiting for me in Sunshine City. But one thing I knew for sure, the place I had just left wasn't home anymore, and this time I wasn't running. I was choosing. I quietly opened my notebook, turned to a clean page, and wrote the first line firmly, Day 1. I am starting over for myself. I arrived in Sunshine City around noon. The sun was high, and the heat rose from the ground. The bus station was small. I stood still for a moment, looking around the new city with my heart beating fast. No one knew who I was, and that felt better than I expected. I rented a small room above an old bar called The Lighthouse. It was less than a 10-minute walk from the beach. The man who ran the place, Mr. Peterson, just waved away my question about showing ID. Pay for a week now. Around here, everyone needs a fresh start. My room was a small space under the roof. The bar was lively every night, but I didn't mind. The music and laughter felt like a different kind of life. The next morning, I walked on the beach without my shoes, my feet sinking softly into the sand. The salty wind blew my hair. I went into a small coffee shop called Harbor Coffee, located near the docks. The girl behind the counter, Maya, had short brown hair and cool gray eyes. She looked at me, then said, "We really need help. Can you make coffee?" I stopped for a second. "I can learn quickly." She lifted an eyebrow, then threw me an apron. Maya, don't spill milk on the steam wand." I don't know why Maya hired me after just one sentence, but from that moment, I was part of Harbor Coffee, a small coffee shop full of weird but real people. Maya was sharp, a bit direct, but not mean. She worked fast, precise, and never overly polite. But at the end of each shift, she'd quietly leave a whole muffin just for me. Maybe that was her way of being kind. One afternoon after work, I wandered into a second-hand store. In the darkest part of the shop, I saw an old, dusty camera. A vintage Snap, a film camera I had wanted for ages. "Want it?" the shop owner asked. "Still works, just needs film." I thought about it, then nodded. Buying it wasn't really smart with my money, but I felt like I had just found a piece of my past I had forgotten. I used to have a similar camera, but I sold it to help Dad pay the power bill when I was 20. This time, I bought it for myself. That night, I sat on the back steps behind the bar, the first roll of film already in the camera. I took a few pictures. The photos wouldn't be perfect, but pressing the button made my heart feel a rhythm I thought I had lost. Maya walked by, looking at me. "Thought you only knew how to make coffee." I smiled softly, lifted the camera, and took a picture of her. Turns out I still remember I once had a dream. She didn't say anything, but gave a small nod, like she understood. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something inside me slowly coming back to life. Not for anyone else, but because I had finally started listening to myself. One evening after my shift, I was sitting in my tiny attic room, soft yellow light shining on a picture I had just developed and hung on the wall. It was a photo of the docks at sunset. I had just finished cleaning up and opened a new box of film when my phone vibrated. The screen showed Sam, little brother. My heart dropped. I let it ring a few times before answering. Sam's voice came through, full of worry. "Where are you? Everyone's freaking out because you just left like that. Mom said you didn't say anything." I leaned my head against the wall and took a deep breath. Sam was only 19, the only one in the family who had ever asked if I was tired. "I'm okay and I need this." Not to run away, but to find myself again, I spoke softly. But they're saying all sorts of things about you. Mom called you selfish. Dad got so angry he broke the TV remote. Sam paused, then sighed. You know what? They still plan to go to Florida, but now they're making me stay home to watch the kids. I told them I couldn't, and they said, then call Emily. Tell her to come back and fix things. I laughed. Fix things? I lived like I wasn't even there for over 10 years. What exactly am I fixing? I know better than anyone. Sam's voice got softer. But they never see it. They just see you as the one who can handle everything. And they were wrong, I said firmly. This time, I'm not going back to fix the problems they created. You need to understand that. Sam was quiet, then whispered, I miss you. I miss you too, I replied. But if I go back, I'll go right back to being that person, and I can't live that life again. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he ended the call with a quiet sigh. I stared at the phone for a long time, feeling heavy, but I knew I couldn't give up now. Just 2 days later, while I was cleaning tables at Harbor Coffee, my phone rang again. This time it was Mom. I wasn't going to answer, but then, like an old habit, I slid the screen. Emily. Her voice came through right away, no hello. Do you still care about this family at all? Walking out in the middle of everything. I put the cleaning cloth down and stepped into the back room. I already said I need space. I'm not the one cleaning up behind everyone anymore. Don't use that tone. Mom snapped. You've caused a complete mess. Beth can't handle the kids. Sam has to work extra hours. Who's supposed to watch them? Weren't you always the best at that? I let out a dry laugh, my voice still calm. Yes, I was good at it. So good that everyone thought it was just what I was supposed to do. But it wasn't. It was a sacrifice, and now I'm choosing not to sacrifice anymore. She paused, then said, cold as ice. If you leave this time, don't expect to come back. We don't need selfish people. I swallowed hard, then spoke, my voice steady. Good, because I don't need a family that only notices me when they need something. I used to be the support that held everyone up, and all I got in return was being forgotten. Emily. I stopped her. I spent my whole youth making sure everyone else was okay. I didn't go to university. I worked 2 jobs. I gave pieces of my life to everyone else. Now, I just want to keep one piece for myself. If that makes me selfish in your eyes, then fine. I hung up before she could say anything else. My heart was racing. Maya walked by. You look like you just ran a marathon. Call home. I nodded inside. Not easy but necessary. She smirked and gave me a cold lemonade. Cut the rope if you want the boat to move. I smiled faintly. There was a simple truth in her joke. I had started to leave the old life behind. At least this time, I was the one in charge. That night, after working for almost 10 hours, I was about to go upstairs when Maya stopped me at the back door. Emily, she said. There's a photo class tonight at the community center by the beach. My friend Leo is teaching. You should go. Bring that old camera of yours. I blinked in surprise. I thought you didn't think I could take a good picture. She winked. I still don't, but Leo is good. Who knows? Maybe your photos aren't that bad. Instead of going back to my room, I followed her to the community center. The classroom was warm and bright, with pictures hung all over the walls. Leo was in his 40s. He looked at me, then at the camera, and smiled. Vintage snap. A classic choice, he said. Have you taken photos before? I did, but it's been a long time, I replied slowly. Then it's perfect timing, Leo nodded. This class isn't about becoming a pro. We just want to help people see the things they've stopped noticing. That night's class wasn't about boring rules, just talking about light, feelings, and the stories in every picture. Leo gave me my first task. Photograph something you can't forget. I went out to the beach early the next morning, camera in hand. I didn't know what to take pictures of. But then when the light came through the old pier, I raised the camera. That became the first photo in a series showing parts of what made me who I was. A rusty bicycle, a young mother with her kids, shoes outside a door. Each picture felt like a quiet message from my memory. Leo started paying more attention to me. One day he said, Emily, your photos feel real. Not perfect, but honest. You should think about putting them together as a group. I wasn't sure. You mean like showing them? He nodded. There's a local photo show next month. The theme is who I am and what I carry. I think your work fits. I thought about it for a whole week. But one night, looking at the film I had developed, I realized the pictures had their own flow, a story without words. I called it Roots and Sky, because I had once held on so tightly to where I came from, but now I was learning how to fly away. The day of the show was in a changed old building used for art. My photos were shown on a wooden wall. I wore a simple light blue dress, standing among people I didn't know. Leo came over, put a hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "You've stepped out of your shadow." An older woman stopped in front of the photo of the rusty bike. She turned to me and asked, softly, "Did you take this?" I nodded. She smiled, her eyes a little wet. It reminded me of my childhood. I had a bike just like that. Thank you. Just those 2 words, thank you, made something inside me shake. For the first time, something I made for myself had touched someone else. That night, I left the show after the streetlights came on. Maya waved at me, lifting a soda can. Leo shook my hand and told me a small art place was thinking about asking me to be part of a series. I walked along the beach. Inside, I no longer had questions like, do I deserve this? Or, what would they think? Instead, there was something simple and complete. I was going in the right direction, and for the first time, I knew for sure the place I belonged wasn't where people needed me to do everything. It was where I could just be myself. One afternoon in early April, I was behind the counter at Harbor Coffee making drinks when the bell above the door jingled. I looked up and froze. He stood there. Thomas Mitchell, my father. He didn't look around, just stared right at me. I set the drink down, wiped my hands, and stepped out. My heart was racing, but my feet didn't shake. "You came a long way," I said calmly. "Sunshine City is over 400 miles from where you are." My father cleared his throat, his look serious. "We need to talk." I signaled to Maya. She nodded and took over. I led my father to the back of the shop, where a wooden bench sat under a palm tree. Dad sat down first. I sat across from him. Your mother's very upset," he started, his voice heavy. "The Florida trip was stopped. Beth couldn't handle the kids. Sam got into a fight with his wife. Everything's a mess." I looked at him, just silent. "We didn't think you would just leave like that," he went on. "It's like the family doesn't mean anything to you anymore." I gave a small smile. "And what about that day when you told me I wasn't included? Was I supposed to stay? Keep cleaning, holding babies, and faking smiles while you all ignored me?" His face moved a little, but he didn't argue. For the first time, I saw he wasn't sure. "You don't know how much you've given up," he said a little softer. I nodded. "You're right, you don't know. Because when I stopped my plans to study photography to stay home and help Mom, you said it was just the normal thing to do. When I gave Beth all my savings for her wedding, Mom said it was what the older sister should do. But now, no one's left to take care of things." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm not angry, not anymore. But I also don't have to come back and fix a life everyone just expected me to always be there to save." He stayed quiet for a long time. For a moment, I thought he might explode. But instead, he just let out a slow breath. "I didn't realize how much this hurt you." I was surprised. Not because he said sorry, but because for the first time, he admitted he hadn't known. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "Building my life again. Working at a coffee shop, learning photography. I had my first show last week. Someone bought one of my photos." He tilted his head slightly. "I didn't know you were still taking pictures." I smiled faintly. "You never asked." We sat a few more minutes in silence. Finally, he stood up. He didn't reach out, didn't say anything emotional. "The door at home is still open if you want to come back." I stood too. I just said, "I am home, Dad. Right here." He gave a small nod. As he walked away, I felt some of the weight in my chest lift. I hadn't gotten angry, hadn't run, hadn't given in. I had said everything I needed to say, and most importantly, I no longer felt like I owed them anything. I went back inside the cafe. Maya raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" I nodded, my smile small but sure. Better than ever. 2 weeks after seeing Dad, I got an email from a local art place called Seaside Arts. They had seen the photo show and really liked the Roots and Sky photos. The email invited me to show some of my photos in their summer show. I read the email 3 times, my heart beating fast. For the first time, a door I thought I'd missed forever had opened. No more Emily, can you help? Or, hey, can you watch the kids? But Emily, the photographer. I took the news to the cafe. Maya turned around looking like she already knew. You got the invitation from Seaside Arts, didn't you? She asked. I blinked. How'd you know? Leo is terrible at keeping secrets, she smirked. Anyway, I told you see things like someone who's been quiet for a long time. I didn't answer right away, but later, back in my room, I sat down and opened my notebook. On a new page, I wrote, I have stepped out of the dark, and the light doesn't scare me anymore. 3 days later, I got a text from Beth. Just one sentence, they're planning a trip to the Caribbean this time. Mom hired a babysitter. I looked at the message, feeling something old disappear inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just a clear understanding. They figured it out without me. They didn't need me, and that wasn't as bad as I once thought. I replied simply, have a great trip. Take care of yourself. Beth sent back a happy face. Then silence. But that was enough. I knew she understood, and I no longer needed to prove anything. The Seaside Arts show happened on a breezy May afternoon. My photos were shown in the last part, 5 in total, arranged to show a journey. The first was a picture of an empty pier at sunset, showing separation. The last one was a photo I took of Maya standing under the palm tree behind the cafe, holding a coffee and smiling. I stood quietly, watching people walk by, looking at the photos. No one knew who I was, and I liked that. I was no longer Big Sister Emily, the one who does everything. I was a storyteller using light and time. A woman in her 50s stopped in front of the photo of the palm tree. She turned to me and asked softly, "Did you take this?" I nodded. She smiled, her eyes a little wet. It reminded me of my childhood. I had a bike just like that. Thank you. Just those 2 words, thank you, made something inside me shake. For the first time, something I made for myself had touched someone else. An hour later, someone from the gallery came to find me, announcing that the old pier picture had been bought by someone from a city down south. $200. Not a huge amount, but to me, it was a quiet sign that I had done the right thing. That night, I left the gallery with money in my hand and new dreams in my head. I stopped by Harbor Coffee. Maya was cleaning. "Can I buy you a coffee?" I asked, half joking. She glanced at me. "Thought you were a big famous artist now. Coming back to pretend to be a barista?" I laughed. "No, I came back because this place is part of the journey, and I still love coffee." We sat by the window, streetlights shining outside. I told her about the woman at the gallery, the buyer, and how I no longer felt the pull to go back. "You found your freedom," Maya said, her voice soft like waves. I didn't answer. I just looked out at the street. I knew from that moment on I wasn't going back. Because this life, simple as it is, messy as it still is mine. Leaving my family wasn't something I ever thought I would do, but the moment they pushed me out, another door opened, the one that led to freedom. I am no longer the one who carries the heavy load, no longer the shadow behind what they wanted. Now I live my own life with my old camera, mornings by the sea, and a quiet peace in my heart. I don't feel bad about it because for the first time, I'm not living to make anyone else happy. I'm living to be myself.